Wall sweeps and wall reveals are detailed modeling tools which can be found under the Architecture tab and in the drop-down arrow selection underneath the wall tool itself. So we see here wall sweeps and wall reveal. So what I've got here is I've just opened up a new Revit project and just built a square room with a floor that's just 6 meters by 6 meters. And this is enough to show you exactly how the tool works, and then you'll go and apply this to your assessment task 4 where appropriate. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to hide these two walls, okay, and I'll show you how this tool works. So we go to wall sweep and then I click on wall sweep. Now by default in your model you're going to have one version that's just going to say wall sweep cornice, and the way that you activate the tool is just by hovering over the wall, because it is a hosted element, kind of like how gutters are hosted to roofs and fascias are hosted to roofs. So it will only appear in a wireframe mode when you're hovering over a wall. So in this instance, you can see that no matter where I hold my mouse over the wall, it'll pick it up. Okay, so if I just click once, okay, click again, that wall sweep is now complete. So you can see this is just like a square on the wall itself. I can also add and remove segments, very similar to the way it's done with fascias, gutters, etc. So I can click on that wall sweep and then in the modify panel in the ribbon, click on add wall, add and remove wall. So I can then click on the next wall, and then if I don't want this wall, I can click on that and it removes the segment from that wall. I'll go back and I can also just use these grips here and I can drag them. So if I don't want it to be the duration of the whole wall, if I only want it to be half of the wall or a certain dimension, I can click on it and like so. The other thing I can do is by clicking on the wall sweep in the properties panel, in the properties window on the right hand side, you've got the offset from the wall. So at the moment that's set at 0, but you could say, well, actually this is set at like 500 millimeters off of the wall. Not sure why you'd do that here. And then the other one is its height. So at the moment that's 800. You could say 0, that puts it back down on the actual ground itself. So it's almost like a hob now. Or if it was like a cornice for a ceiling, you could put it at like 2.7 or whatever your ceiling height is, and it would be right at the top of your wall where the ceiling meets the wall. Where the ceiling meets the wall. The other thing you can do is we can add wall sweeps that are vertical as well as horizontal, and you can use the same profiles. So I'll go back to here underneath the wall options and then click on wall sweep. But this time in the ribbon, in the modify panel, I'm going to click on vertical. Hover my mouse over the wall, the same thing applies. I can click them and that will appear. Oops, I can click on this wall as well. And will it add it? Okay, yeah. So yeah, I can't say I've ever used a wall sweep personally that's like this. If I wanted something like this, generally it's going to be more. It's going to be more than usually a one-off item. In which case, I would probably use a curtain wall panel or a generic model or model in place or something like that. So wall sweeps I have not used vertically before, to be honest. Even architraving around doors, generally that's within the door family, not a separate element. And then the wall sweeps in the horizontal plane, I use these personally a lot. It's pretty standard to utilize them. There are different methods you can use as well. So this is pretty useless at the moment. It's just a square box. So how do we draw something that's of actual use? So the way that these are constructed, if I click on this family here and go edit type, you'll see this is very reminiscent of a gutter family or of the fascia board, where you've got a couple of default parameters, but then you got the profile here. At the moment, this is just the default profile, which is just this, obviously this square 100 by 100 millimeter box. And then you have the model material as well. So these are just profile families. So what we can do is we can make a new family. So I'm going to go File, Family, New, and then go down to Profile, Metric Profile. Now there's a lot of different types of profiles: Profile Hosted, Profile Mullion, Profile Rail. Just Metric Profile is fine. So double click on that, that opens up the family, and you've just got this the crosshairs in a 2D environment. So this is just a 2D type family. So what I've done is I've just Googled some cornices and some skirting types, and I've got something like this. We're going to do something very, very simple for this exercise, but you're free to download any design that you like and then just modify it from there and draw it from there. Now you could always save this as an image, and then in the family you can insert the image just here, and trace over it if you like. Alternatively, if you've got a CAD file, you could download and import the CAD file from here as well, and then trace over that. Or in this instance, we're just going to draw it. So the correct way to draw it, it's always important to note that you want to draw everything in this area over here, in this quadrant. The reason for that is because that will default to the correct face of the wall. So this reference plane here is actually the face of the wall, and that's the face of the floor. So almost like this is like your skirting board area here. If it was a cornice, you could still draw it here, but you would go the other way. So this quadrant here, that would be your ceiling level, and that's your wall face. If you draw it over this side, that is fine. You can always flick it around later, but just a few more steps that you don't have to do. So I'm just going to grab, go to my Create tab, and in the ribbon, click on Line. And I'm just going to do a very simple profile. I'll do something that's like, I don't know, let's say 120 mil up, across, say, 15 mil. I'll come down 20. I'll go in 5, come down 10. Okay, something like that. And then what I might do is I'll just round off this edge here. So I'll use the fillet, and I'll fillet these 2 lines. Now I'm just eyeballing this. This is not a real type of skirting board. I'm just playing around. Okay, so you end up with something that looks like this. All right, now I'll go File, Save As, and I'll save this family just to today's class. And I'm going to call this PR for profile underscore handrail. Whoops, not handrail, sorry, skirting type 1. And I'll save that. And now I'll load this back into our project. So this is just that project 1 file. All right, so that's now done. I can then click on this family, and I'm going to, as I always should, go edit type and duplicate it. And I'll just call this skirting type 1. And then in here, I'll change my profile. You'll see now skirting type 1 is available. I've got a couple others here I'm going to show you in a second. So I'll click on that. I can choose its material, and I'll just go OK. All right, and you see there's now our skirting board with the bullnose design with the chamfered edge and the shadow line. Okay, so it looks something like that. I'll get rid of that, and I'll just redraw that quickly. So go wall, sweep, and that was type 1. So let's click there, and that's it. So that's now done. That looks good. Okay. Now, what we can do is you can always change that on the fly. So I've got a couple other examples to show you here. So I've got another type. So type 2 is a bit more of a federated or Victorian style. So if I show you that here, that's what this profile looks like. And again, I've just eyeballed that. I've just looked at a couple of images and just sketched something out. And you can see the type of result that gives you, which looks really good. Now, you're probably wondering what happens with doors and windows and stuff like that. So let's say with doors. I put a door through here, okay, and it does cut. The door will cut the cornice, or sorry, will cut the skirting board, but the architrave in this door family is ignoring this, the skirting board here. Now, it depends on the door family you're using and what you are and aren't seeing. So in here, these door families, by default, they do show those architraves. But if you had a door that didn't have those architraves, then it wouldn't find it, or it wouldn't intersect with these skirting boards. Or the alternative is as well, is once this door is cut, you can click on the skirting and then just drag these back, and they'll very nicely snap to the same place. So you get a clean finish like so. Now, the other thing that you can utilize are something called wall reveals. So I'm going to go back to the wall tools, and you'll see under sweeps you have reveals. It's essentially the same thing, but in the opposite. You can see here in this little video example that essentially is subtracting wall out of the profile. So I'll click on that, and again, if I just click on this wall, like so, you end up with something that looks like this. Now again, the door has been ignored here, and you've got like this little this void extrusion within the wall. Okay, and I'll put it on the other side as well. So I go wall reveal. Okay, and there we are there. All right. Now it's the exact same thing in reverse. So if I click on this, the reveal family has got just this default profile. Theoretically, I can use any of the handrails, any of the skirtings we've created. So if I took the second type of skirting and go okay, you'll see now that like in reverse, that profile is like pressed into the wall rather than expressed out of it like down here. So you can get some very like complex, unique designs out of it. But what I will do is we'll leave it as this profile for now, just this default, that's fine. But what I'll do, I'll move this up to say 900 above the finished floor level, and I'll do the same over here. But to show you sort of the variety and the flexibility of wall sweeps, sometimes it's a really good idea or a really quick idea. You can do wall sweeps as handrails. So what I've done is I've created a handrail, okay, which is just a circle. So here's our wall face here. There's our floor slash ceiling. But the reason why it's done like that is because the rail height will be the center line of the rail. Okay, it could be to the top of the rail if you prefer. It doesn't really matter. But that's how I've done it, and then I've just loaded it back into the project. Now what I've done is I've created a third wall sweep type. Whoops. Wall sweep. Okay, and I've called it handrail, 40mm handrail. So I'll click on that, and then I'll just click here and here, and that's now done. Okay, so there's my handrail. Now that's basically stuck onto the wall face at the moment. Okay, you can see that it's basically on the wall face. But I can lift this up to say 1,000. All right, now you've probably seen this before where handrails are kind of recessed back into walls. So I could do that here. So the offset from wall, I could do it as 50mm, so it comes out from the wall 50mm. Or I could go the other way and put it back into the wall 50mm, like so. Or in this case, to make it flush, should be -40. And now you've got like an area where you've got a reveal in a wall, like a cavity in a wall, and then the handrail is recessed within that wall, something like that. So it gives you a good idea of sort of the flexibility, the options you have with wall sweeps and reveals and whatnot. Generally speaking, cornices and skirtings are the most common. The wall reveals are really good for when you've got void extrusions that go along the duration of a wall, so stuff like recessed handrails and whatnot. It's usually pretty useful for that. But really it's just a case of experimenting and just understanding what the tools are and what the capabilities of those tools are, and then applying it appropriately as they come up. But for your project, what you're going to do is go find a couple of different profiles that you like in terms of skirting boards, and then apply them to your project as appropriate. Downpipes and plumbing pipework in general can be really created in two different ways within Revit. The traditional, or the more robust version, or the correct methodology, is under the Systems tab, and your Systems tab pertains to the MEP disciplines, mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. And you can see that in the center of the ribbon, you've got plumbing and piping, which includes pipes, pipe placeholders, pipe fixtures, accessories, flexi pipes, stuff like that. Now, if we were setting up a full system that we needed to quantify or create schematics, or it was for a larger project, then this is the method that I would use. But considering the size of our project, we really can just use architectural model in place, or components, modeling families in place, and then just choose plumbing fixtures for those families. So really there's two types that's been created here. You've got your typical parapet fixture, where you've got a rain head and the downpipe, and then you've got a typical normal guttering quad gutter system with the jackknife pipe work, downpipe from there. So how these created, it's actually not that complex. So what I'm going to do is we'll start off with the rain head and the downpipe. That's probably the easiest one. There's a number of different ways that you can do this, but let's say for argument's sake that I wanted to create one that was on this wall over here. So I've got one here at the back because it's where the box gutter ends. But let's say, for instance, I wanted to create one on the front. Just as an example, I'm going to delete it afterwards. But I'd start off with an elevation. So I'd go to my front elevation. So I think it's south. Yep. Okay. And then what we'll do is I'll go to Architecture tab, Component, and then Model in Place. the first thing it's going to ask me for is to choose a category for this model in place, because it's basically free modeling. So I'm going to start with a plumbing fixture, okay, or you could say pipe fitting or pipe accessory, but I'm going to go plumbing fixture, that's fine. And then I'll say okay. Then it's going to ask me to name it. So in this case, I don't know, I'll call this one downpipe A as an example. All right, so now that's done, everything grays out, and you can see I can't select anything because I'm in this sort of modeling environment. And you'll notice now that the ribbon looks a lot like a family editor. So it's kind of like I'm in a family editor, but inside the model environment, not separately like you were with your joinery and casework. So from here, I'm just going to use an extrusion. But firstly, what I'm going to do is I need to set my work plane. Now, work plane is a lot like a C-plane in Rhino. In fact, it's the exact same thing. So in the Create tab at the very end of the ribbon, I can see here where it says Set. I'm going to click on Set, okay, and then it gives me a few options. I can pick the name of a work plane. So what that has to do with is it's either a level or a reference plane. Okay, you can see I've got a couple here for my downpipes, downpipe 2, downpipe 3, etc. Or I can pick a plane. And this one's probably the easiest one to use. So I'll click on that and say okay. And then I hover over this wall. Okay, and as long as I got the face of the wall, like I can tell it's the face of the wall there because it's selecting all the lines that are perpendicular to my view. I'll click on that, and now I know that is set up correctly. So when I start drawing an extrusion, it's going to be drawing from the face of that wall back towards me. So I'll start with the solid extrusion. I'll go extrusion, and I'll just take a rectangle, and I'll draw it somewhere around there, like that. Okay, nothing too fancy. And I'll make that, say, 260. Okay. Then here you've got the extrusion start, the extrusion end, and then the material associated to it. This is very similar to the family environment. I'm just going to click OK for now and just leave that as is. And then the next one is what is called a sweep. So this is very easy in this regard. So I'm just going to go sweep, going to click on sweep, and there's two components to the sweep. The first one is to sketch the path where it's been of the sweep itself, and the second one is to sketch the profile. And you can see this is a lot like Rhino in terms of like you've got your rail and your profile. It's exactly the same concept. So I'm going to sketch my path first. So I'll say sketch path, and I'm going to take this just straight line. I'm going to go from the center of this rain head down to the ground, somewhere around here. That's it. It's just one path. Okay, I'll click OK. And then I'm going to say over here, the profile, I can either pick a profile that's already been modeled in this project. So if I had a circular profile, it was just a 100 mil, I could pick that and it would extrude that down or in whichever direction I want. But in this case, I'm just going to sketch it. So I'm going to click on Edit Profile. And then it's going to prompt me to go to another view because the profile is actually, going down the building. I can't draw a circle in this view because I'm drawing a circle from an elevation. So it's going to prompt me to go to a floor plan. So I'll just go to my ground floor plan. And then here is where I draw my circle. So I click on the circle and I don't know, I'll draw it somewhere around here. I'll make that something like that. Okay, and then click the green tick. All right, and then I'll go, oh, well, there's where the center of the circle is. That's where my path is. It'd help if it show me. That's okay. All right, and then we're going to go to our 3D. All right, and then you can see there's the circle. There's the path. So that's not quite right. So I'll double click here. I'm just going to move this. Okay, like that. And then I'll click the green tick once, click the green tick again, and there's our pipe work, okay? And you can see I'm completely out of whack here, but this is fine. So I can just drag this back using the little grips. Okay, now it's flush with the wall, and this will be like 150 mil, something like that. And then it's just a case of moving this pipe work out as well. So I can do that just from the top view. And I'll move this out, say, sure, 60 mil. All right, and there's my rain head and downpipe. Very simple. Okay, we can do something much more complex. We're going to get actual models or actual families for these rain heads, but as always, work backwards. What do you need? And what's the time input versus the time output? To me, 99% of the time, that is going to be sufficient for anything you do in terms of residential. Click the green tick, and now that family is complete, and you can see that is one selectable family, just as this is one selectable family. Now you can then just copy this around, Control C, move it around, flick it over, and then move it to the next place in your project wherever you need it. So that's how that type of rain head and downpipe is modeled. The next one is the one up here with this sort of jackknife design. Okay, let's do one over here. All right, so what I'll do is I'll go back to that same elevation, and I'm going to go, and you can see there's one downpipe there. So I've already created one, and you'll see it's just a sweep. So if I double click on that family, okay, it opens up the family, and now you see it's a sweep. Click on edit sweep, and you can see there's the profile, and there is the path. So it's just an angular down, angled down path. That's all it is. All right, so let's try that. Let's do it ourselves again. So this time I'm going to pick this wall face just as some reference. I just need some reference, and then I can move the pipe work afterwards to exactly where I need it. So I'm going to go architecture, component, model in place, choose the plumbing fixture again. I'll just call this one downpipe B. All right, and then let's go again. So we'll go sweep, and then we're going to set our work plane, pick a plane, and it's going to be this face of the wall, and then we'll start sketching. So I'm going to go from around about here, come down, say 300, angular, down, and then come across again. Now I can edit this on the fly anytime I need to. So I'll do something like that. What? Sketch path. There we go. All right, something like that. That's fine. Go OK. We'll select the profile. Again, it's going to prompt us to go to a floor plan. So I'll just go to level 1 this time. And again, I'm just going to draw a circle, and I don't even care where I draw it right now. I'm just going to draw it somewhere around here, and I'll make it like an 80 mil diameter pipe. I'll say OK. Now that's complete. There's my profile. Okay, so I should have seen that. I'll click on that and move this. Well, it won't snap for me. So what I'll do is I'm going to do this. I'm going to move it away. Click the green tick. Go to my 3D view. And then I can see it here. There's my path, there's my profile. Double click on the profile. I'm going to click on that and then move the center of this circle to the center of the path. Okay. And you can see that this is equal with the front face of this wall because that's the work plane we aligned ourselves to. And you can see we had to draw it over here because it has to come out the center of the bottom of the quad gutter. I'll click OK, and then OK again. And there we go. That looks pretty good. Now, if this is not in a location I want, or for instance, if this is too low, a few things. So I can double click on this. I can click on the path and double click on the path. That turns back into a magenta line. And I can just move this around. So if this didn't come down far enough, I can just drag this down on the fly. If this was too shallow of an angle, I could increase that angle as well on the fly. Go OK, and it will turn to, so you see the grayed out one is where it is now. The black line is where it's going to be. Click the green tick again, and then that updates. I can even chamfer those corners if I want to. So this path, I can do something like this. Oops. Okay, and you can see it sort of chamfered those off. You know, in this case, I wouldn't really want to, so I'm going to pull that back. Okay, we'll say that's all right. Then the next one is where it's located. So to do that, to be honest, the easiest way to do this is just to go to my top view and then move it appropriately, because I can see my roof line quite easily here and my pipe work. So let's say I'll move this back somewhere around here. All right, so I've got something that looks like this, but this is going through the roof now because I just want it to drop onto this roof, so then it drops down this roof and into the gutter above the garage. Again, just double click on the family, click on the profile, and then I'm just going to move this profile up a little bit and then go OK. Okay, and you got something like that. Now, there's a bit of work to do there, but same deal as before. You can edit them all on the fly. We can copy them, rotate them, paste them around the building, and that's basically how we do it. So those are the two different types of downpipes we're using in this project, and we're using the model in place method to create our own families within the modeling environment and then move them and design them appropriately. You can also utilize model in place for void extrusions and void masses. A key example of that is around where this roof of the garage joins with the house itself, and how this is treated, because really this would be joining to the stud wall behind these walls, so not to the cladding. So if I hide these walls here, really we shouldn't see this facade, or this facade should just be the stud wall. So to be honest, it's not too often that you would go down this path, but nonetheless it's a good case study of how you would actually get around and model this. So what I'm going to do is let's just double check in our section view first. So I'm going to go ground floor, click on our section, and we can see how the roof is currently coming up to meet the facade wall. So this component right there, it's a bit hard to see, but this area just in here, this is the timber cladding, that's the battens, then that's the timber stud, and really this roof needs to come all the way back to the timber stud, but we want to strip away this facade underneath of here. And then equally this here is the expanded foam facade, and therefore as well that also needs to be cut back. So going to the 3D view, what I'm going to do is we're going to model this predominantly in 3D. I'm going to go to the architecture tab, component, model in place, and this will be a generic model. And I'll just call this roof void. Okay, that's now complete. You can see the model's all grayed out, can't select anything, so now we're in our modeling environment. First thing I need to do is set our work plane. So I'm going to set the work plane, and I'm going to pick a plane, click OK. I'm going to click on the face of the expanded foam facade. Okay, that's now set. What we're going to do now is click on void extrusion, or void forms, and then click on void extrusion. Now from here I could go to an elevation and draw it, but I think it would actually be pretty complex to draw in an elevation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the pick lines tool and just hover over the edge of the roof. So there's one there, there's the other edge, and I'll pick that edge as well. Okay, but I'll also pick the face of this wall, something like this. Then I'm going to grab a line, and I'm going to go from this point here across to there. Okay, so when I zoom in, if I go to my left view, this is what we've drawn essentially, something that looks like this. So I'll just trim this back and close this off. There we are. And then I'll click OK. Now when I go OK, looks like nothing's actually happened at this point. But what I need to do is I'm going to drag this out so it's flush. In fact, I'll drag it out to here. So it's orange because it's not cutting anything. So I'll use my line tool and I'll select the face of this expanded foam and the face of the void extrusion. And then the void extrusion itself, it's starting at 0. I'll take it back, say, I don't know, let's go 150, something like that. And then what I'll do is I'll use the cut tool. So I'll come up to the modify panel, modify ribbon, click cut, and I'll click on cut, and then this wall. And then again, the void extrusion. So I got to hit tab. There's the void extrusion, and then this wall. There we go. Now that's complete. I'll click the green tick. Now let's hide this roof. Okay, so there you go. There is that void extrusion. Now we need to make sure that we're not cutting too far into this wall. So this is where going to the section helps. So I'll go to the section. Okay, there's that void extrusion. Now I'm hitting tab to select it, and then once I've selected it, I know I have, because it will come up with the modify tab and it will say edit in place. I click on that, and now simply I can move this wherever I want. So I can click on this void extrusion and I'll move it back to here so it's flush with the timber stud. Notice now we're cutting the weatherboards, and we're cutting the expanded foam right on the joint of where it meets the stud wall. I'll say okay. And that's now complete. Now what I can do is I can edit the footprint of this roof and drag this back to the stud wall, and that would be a much more realistic junction. So you'll end up with something that looks like this. And in fact, I probably should, in terms of this mass, I'll go edit in place. I'll click on this and I'll drag this further down. So it looks something like that. Okay, and you can see how that facade's now peeled back. That's how you would do this, I guess, in the most accurate sense. And you can see now that that has joined really nicely. That's like very clean, very accurate. Now, again, this is just one example of where you can use void extrusions to your benefit. in quite a finicky, detailed modeling sense, like here. But you can use void extrusions basically anywhere on the building at any time to create full penetrations through a wall, or to create rebates like we've just done now. It doesn't really matter one way or another, and that is applicable to ceilings, roofs, basically any system family. It won't do it for windows and it won't do it for doors, but it will do it for floors, ceilings, roofs, walls, etc.